Good afternoon. I'm Dara Bunjon. I'm the food enthusiast here at J More Living. I'm a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a frustrated baker. Those of you joining us live, drop your questions into the comment box and you'll see me turn from time to time and address any questions or comments that you have for our guest. This week's guest is Amy Zitelman, CEO of Soom Foods. She and her sisters make what many consider to be the best tahini available in the United States. Amy was recognized as Forbes 30 Under 30 and author of The Tahini Table. Let's bring Amy in.
Hi, thank you.
We were talking a little bit earlier, and I had to show Amy. I had worked for her and her sisters at VegFest 2015. Okay, everyone, I hang on to things for a long time in honor. Other than the show today, Amy, what else do you have on your plate?
Well, personally, I have three young kids. So I have three sons now. The oldest is 5, and then a 2-year-old and a 9-month-old. So that keeps me busy. And running Soom Foods is my day to day. We have a team now of 12 employees, 12 team members, including doing our fulfillment in-house here in Philadelphia. And so that's really what keeps me busy, making sure that our team has the resources that they need to do the job to get tahini out to the North American market. And of course, trying to keep my house in some semblance of order and keeping my kids out of trouble.
Well, that's a lot. You've come a long way. I think you said when you started this with your sisters, Jackie and Shelby, that you knew nothing about products. Weren't you into education? Weren't you a teacher?
Well, I wasn't even a teacher. I was just a student. I was a senior at University of Delaware when Shelby, my oldest sister, had the idea and considered starting a tahini business. I studied interpersonal communication, so I'm really passionate about social psychology, behavioral psychology, and have been able to apply some of those things in my entrepreneurial journey. But you're right, I had no business experience. Both of our parents are entrepreneurs, and so I think entrepreneurship grows, in our blood. And my sisters and I have really different skill sets and interests. Shelby did study business, for instance, and had more experience in the entrepreneurial world. Jackie married her husband, who is a tahini expert in Israel and now in Ethiopia. And so we were able to bring our different skill sets and interests, even though we were young, to apply them to the business from the early days.
Okay, what does carrot cake have to do with all this?
Well, Jackie's mother-in-law, Rachala, is an amazing baker, a very health-conscious cook, and loves to host. When I spent time in Israel, Shelby spent time in Israel. When my parents go to Israel, Rachala always welcomed us to literally her kitchen table. Her kitchen in Israel, it didn't have an island in it. The dining room table or the kitchen table was just right in the middle. You could sit there while she was cooking and you could eat all the leftovers. And one of the first time our parents met Omri's parents, so the very important meeting of, in our faith, the machatanam or the in-laws, Rachala made a carrot cake, which happened to be our mom's favorite type of cake. Our mom loves carrot cake. We always get it from the diner that we grew up around the corner from in Rockville, Maryland. And we all loved the carrot cake so much and asked Rachala what made it special. How did you make this carrot cake? And she answered that she substitutes some of the vegetable oil for tahini. And that is one of the things that really put a light bulb off in our minds. If tahini can add this much delicious flavor and consistency and, of course, health benefits to something like carrot cake, what else can tahini be great for? And why isn't tahini being used that way in the American market? So the carrot cake definitely is a very meaningful kind of ideation of Soom.
What were the first products that you started with?
We really just started with tahini. So we don't manufacture the tahini ourselves. We contract manufacturers abroad, primarily in Israel, but also now in Ethiopia, to press the tahini for us. And still to this day, around 90% of our sales is selling tahini in different sizes and formats across different channels. So we sell a large 40-pound or 5-gallon bucket to restaurants all across the country. We sell that also in a 1-pound jar, as small as an 11-ounce jar. And so most of what we sell is just tahini. And most of our efforts is educating the American market on all the ways that they can use tahini throughout the day and throughout different dishes, both savory and sweet. But we also
And
sell a chocolate spread. That was actually one of our products back in 2015 when we got started, inspired by Nutella, but only 3 ingredients and less than half the amount of sugar. So tahini, powdered pure cane sugar, and cocoa powder. Here's an example of our dark chocolate sea salt. And we just launched for the first time in 10 years a new product, a snacking bite made from dates, tahini, and oats, which is a really nice treat to have throughout the day. I'm loving them, my husband and our kids. We're all really enjoying the snack at home.
but you also have small carrot cake bites too, don't you now?
Correct. One of the flavors to celebrate our 10th birthday, our first sale was in May of 2013. And so this year, when we launched the new product, we decided to make a carrot cake flavor in order to celebrate, carrot cake, what really started our passion for Soom, and also the fact that it had been a whole decade since my sisters and I set out to do this. So the carrot cake bite is still available for a limited time because it's really just for the spring.
Okay. You were talking about you sell the tahini in many different sizes and you do food service. How important was it that Chef Michael Solomonov of Sahayev in Philadelphia, which is a very well-known restaurant, he's a well-known chef, he is top of the line. How important was that sale, or tell us more about that sale?
Simply put, very important. It really is one of the most formative things that happened to Soom Foods. And so you're right, Mike Solomonov is a very famous, at this point, chef here in Philadelphia. And his restaurant Zahav is actually now 15 years old. And so when Soom started, this was before 10 years ago, maybe 11 or 12 years ago. And we had the chance to do market research and ask people across the states about their experience with tahini. Most of who we talked to were consumers or grocery store clerks. And most of them answered that they either had no idea what tahini was. If they did, they only used it to make hummus, and they couldn't name the brand that was sitting in the back of their fridge that they were going to throw away, 6 months later, having just used it once. And actually, we had the opportunity to meet with Chef Mike and his business partner and ask him his experience with tahini. Here he has a burgeoning Israeli restaurant in Philadelphia. And we said, what tahini are you using? And his answer was similar. He said, whatever the distributor brings me. I don't even know the brand name and I wish it was better. And so that was what gave us the realization that the restaurant industry was a potential channel for us in growing this business. When we started a food business, we imagined tahini being on every grocery store shelf and in every home cook's pantry. And we really didn't have a grasp of how great it would be to get into restaurants until that first sale to Zahav. So that birthday in May of 2013, it's actually slated on May 8th, which was the first day that I then met with Chef Mike when we got our first import, and he purchased the product for the first time. Because what we learned immediately was that restaurants not only buy more tahini, but they buy it more often, right? They're going through 40 pounds a week, where a consumer might take a year to not even finish 11 ounces or 1 pound.
Right.
And so that is what slowly had us start to realize the value of the restaurant industry, of course, in volume and in contribution to our revenue. But what also started happening was the influence that a chef like Mike Solomonov has, especially when he released his cookbook called Zahav, that we realized his influence could contribute to Soom's credibility. And so being able to sell to Mike, but also other restaurants all across the country, has been really instrumental in us developing the credibility of our brand and having people with more influence than ourselves contribute to the idea that our product is of very high quality.
Well, I mean, there were a couple of articles and surveys taken, and Zoom has always been to the top. And I think one of the features of Zoom's tahini is that you have very little oil at the top. I know when I would buy tahini, and I was one of those people when in the back of the refrigerator, there was a pile of oil on the top, but yours is smooth and well blended. What type of shelf life are people looking at when they buy tahini?
Yeah, so tahini is pressed with a 2-year shelf life from production. And so tahini is naturally shelf stable. It is can be stored in the ambient temperature, it does not need to be refrigerated, even once opened. What turns tahini rancid is the addition of water. And that is what will start it on its journey of not being able to be held in shelf stability. So, for instance, if you're making a tahini sauce or salad dressing, those should be stored in the refrigerator where your tahini from the jar can actually stay in your pantry like a natural peanut butter or nut and seed butter in general.
Okay.
And the 2 years from production is more for quality sake as opposed to safety sake. So it's not developing anything that could, make somebody sick or something like that. It's just as tahini sits for longer, exactly like your experience, the oil separates more. And quite frankly, it gets harder to use. When we started Soom and saw all the tahinis sitting on the bottom shelf of the international aisle with an inch of oil up top, that showed us that this had been made a long time ago. And so one of the things that Soom has really tried to accomplish is a appropriate velocity and production schedule so that we have tahini in the States and on shelves and in people's homes that is not old, that is as fresh as possible, and then has the best flavor as possible and is also as easy to use as possible.
Well, what you brought up, I think most people, as you say, they know tahini for hummus, baba ganoush, maybe halava, but there's so many ways to use the tahini, both sweet and savory, and the opportunities are there. I know there's a great deal of recipes online at zoomfoods.com, but also you did the cookbook, the tahini table.
I actually brought one to show. That's right. Yes. We did have
Okay.
the opportunity to write the tahini table, which has over 100 recipes from breakfast, lunch, snacks, dessert, and dinner that you can use tahini throughout the day. So it's not just the tahini table cookbook, but going back to Mike Solomonov, his Zahav cookbook has been extremely instrumental in educating the American market about all the ways that tahini can be used. From his first chapter on tahina sauce and mixing that with chickpeas to make hummus, to his tahina shortbread cookies, which were a viral hit when the cookbook came out. We have similar recipes, and also vegan mac and cheese or tahini oatmeal cookies, classics that we find familiar, that the addition of tahini not only adds a nice nuttiness and also creamy consistency to some recipes, but that really nice, sophisticated sesame flavor. And of course, the health benefits of sesame that I love adding into these recipes.
Right. Well, I mean, the product is basically gluten-free except for maybe the chocolate. Is it?
Also gluten-free. All of our products are naturally gluten-free. They're not certified gluten-free. For instance, our new bites are made with date, tahini, and oats. And while the oats aren't certified gluten-free, our products always range as vegan, naturally gluten-free, and just real ingredients. The tahini is just ground sesame seeds. Our chocolate spreads are tahini with some powdered sugar, cocoa powder, and maybe a little bit of sea salt, like in the dark chocolate sea salt, which is delicious. So we really like to celebrate tahini and other real ingredients in making very simple and still delicious ingredients and products to consume throughout the day.
Well, tahini is a superfood, and it's not a nut, it's a seed. So there lays the difference. So anybody with a nut allergy doesn't have a concern with the tahini. Um, and I think your whole product line's kosher. Am I correct?
Correct. The whole product line is kosher. And you're right. Sesame is one of the best non animal sources of protein, calcium, and iron. It's rich in vitamin and minerals. It has calcium in it. I mean, the nutritional profile of sesame seeds is enormous, and sesame seeds have been celebrated for millennia, cultivated back in India as far as 5000 BCE. And what was amazing is that the seed has been traded for its ritual and medicinal purposes across many cultures over the years. And so the health benefits and also the culinary benefits of sesame seeds and ground sesame seeds, tahini, can be found in many, many cuisines across the globe, but especially from the Middle East, North Africa, India, and throughout Asia as well.
Right. Well, the Chinese sesame paste is not exactly what tahini is. There's a difference.
There is a difference, but it's very similar to Chinese sesame paste is also just ground sesame. I would say that the preferred flavor profile of Chinese sesame paste is for it to be more bitter than the type of tahini that Middle Eastern tahini prefers, which is more nutty. It's really a celebration of the Ethiopian and North African sesame seed, white humera, and it growing in that specific region. But it's still the similar ingredient and has a similar application of uses. Chinese sesame paste, tahini, ground sesame seeds, and Indian cuisine, all very similar applications.
I noticed in going on your Instagram, and everybody, all the information is coming up, but it's not really hard. It's Soom, Soom Foods.com. And if you can't get that, here we go. There we go. I'm just in a mood today. Noticing on your Instagram that the marketing has been very shrewd with Soom Foods. A lot of partnerships, like with Newman Foods, other foods, and doing practices along those lines. So cross marketing, getting a broader market to see your product. But recently, didn't you take on a institutional investor, Clover Vitality?
Correct. Yeah. So most of our marketing efforts contribute to our overall goal of educating the North American market on tahini, both introducing tahini to many people that have never heard of it. Once they learn what tahini is, of course, inspiring them to use it at home, mostly through the more traditional applications like you described. Hummus is a bridge recipe for people bringing tahini into their homes for the first time. But then once they have it in their homes, like the purpose of the tahini table, it's giving people recipes where they can use tahini more often, right? That it's better for just than just for hummus. And so all of our marketing efforts always come back to this idea of how can we inspire somebody to pick up tahini for the first time? And how can we inspire somebody to pick it up for the second time and the third time and the fourth time? I mean, there's really only opportunity ahead of us of making tahini a more familiar and appreciated ingredient in the American market. And similar to the realization of the influence of chefs, exactly like you described, when we're able to find other products and other companies that have a similar consumer profile to Soom, where their audience may benefit from being introduced to tahini, and we have similar values and high quality ingredients and good business practices, we found that that's the best way to accelerate that marketing opportunity of consumer education and that marketing need of consumer education. And consumer education is expensive, especially growing a category with less familiarity than other products, right? This is not a granola bar or something that you've eaten before and this is a new, better version of. This is a product that has existed for thousands of years across the world that still most Americans are not familiar with. And so to create that familiarity takes a lot of time and costs quite a bit of money. And so that's the reason why after 8 years of my family self-funding the business, we were excited to take on strategic capital, strategic investments in order to be able to afford the cost of our marketing, of acquiring customers, and rolling out into more and more grocery stores.
Right. And you have Whole Foods, ShopRite. Um, you are available in many, many places, though all your products are available online if people cannot find it in their local stores that they can purchase direct from Zoom Food. Now, I have a very serious question. Why is the name Zoom?
So Soom is the Hebrew word for sesame in Hebrew. And so Soom Foods was the name that my sisters and I came up with at this point 12 years ago in order to introduce sesame, at least in this variation, as tahini to the North American market in our way. So that's why we called it Soom Foods.
Just curious.
Yeah,
Never asked.
great question.
So, well, it's the most important one.
What's really nice though is it has just become like an ambiguous term. I think one of the challenges with the name is that it's hard to hear. We're always like constantly spelling it for people. But now that it is established, it's been exciting because Soom has become a bit ubiquitous with tahini in the American market because we were the first brand to really invest in that consumer education and in building out its place in our consumer preferences in these culinary trends over the past 10 years. We love that some people just call tahini Soom, right? Or that when people are requesting something from the store or recommending a tahini, that they're able to recommend it by our brand name. It's been a very rewarding accomplishment over the past 10 years of hard work.
Well, that's quite an accomplishment if you think about Kleenex, which is really facial tissues.
Mm-hmm.
People don't ask for facial tissues, and they might buy the store brand, but they still bought a box of Kleenex. So
Exactly. Or cute.
tying that in together. So you became chief executive officer about 2 years ago. Shelby is now the chief operating officer, your sister, and she was the CEO previously. And your sister Jackie is doing more procurement. Now, she's living in Israel, am I correct?
Correct. And actually, Shelby and I swapped CEO roles in 2019. It feels like 2 years ago because it was right before COVID. It was when she had her third son. And based off of her personal circumstances, we realized that it would be better for the business if I stepped into the role of CEO. Actually, since then, for about over a year now, Shelby has been out of the day to day at Zoom. We found a new team member to replace her role as COO and what she was doing to oversee our financial strategy. And so she now sits as president of the board and participates in big strategic decisions and guiding me and the team along with Jackie through our decisions in the day-to-day, but she's not in the day-to-day anymore. And exactly, since Jackie is based in Israel and her husband is also involved in the commodity trade out of Ethiopia, she has been instrumental to our procurement processes, to our quality assurance, and really in maintaining our relationships with manufacturers overseas.
I got a kick. I always do my little promo pieces. So the story that I did on Facebook, I like to pick out a song that means something to me or the person. So it has come and gone. I don't know if you got to see it, but the promotional piece, and I picked out the song Sisters.
I
And that was
actually didn't see it because I'm not personally on Instagram much right now, but now I'm going to go check it out.
Well, it was Facebook. It was a story on Instagram. When I did the story, I put James Brown going, I feel good.
Oh,
I
nice.
just pick out songs because people will stop when they hear the song
Exactly.
and they relate back. But the sisters, I remember my sister and I used to a gazillion years ago. I think it was Rosemary Clooney did the song. So that's how old that was.
And you have one sister, Dara?
I have one sister. She's in California. And her passion is movies, and she heads up the Desert Film Society, and they just put a star on the Walk of Fame in Palm Springs
Wow.
and honored her. And
Wow.
me with food. I get to talk to all these wonderful people. And, food is easier. And she sends me links to see things. So I get the benefit of what she's doing. Um, where do you see, I'm not sure there's an answer, but where do you see Zoom in 5 years?
Wow, it's such a great question. And that has changed so much over the first 5 years, these past 5 years, especially with the shifts from COVID and just business in general. But Zoom is just really working hard to become a strategic business in the Philly community. We love the types of jobs that we have available and our contribution to our little micro economy here, right? Paying people's
Right.
salaries and contributing to the logistics and supply chain of our business. So that has been really rewarding. And I see Soom as a company that has a few product lines. So our tahini and chocolate spreads are our nut butter line. Our bites are our new snack category product. And we have a couple other products in development, which have not been announced yet. But we do see Soom as a brand of tahini products, of innovative and value added products across the grocery store. So we are working on a few more ready to go and ready to consume products.
I was taught a long time ago when you introduce a product, that's when you start the next one.
Oh, if that one of the products actually we've been working on longer than our bites. They've just been taking longer to develop into the standard that we expect. And so that product has now been usurped by launching these new snacking bites, but it's still very much in the pipeline. Yeah, I would say about 12 to 18 months from ideation to, product
Sure.
launch is
Yeah.
pretty normal.
Yeah. Let me get to my typical questions that I ask at the end of the interview. We could talk a little bit more because I love marketing and promotions and things
Mhm.
of that nature. Um, what was the best bite you had all week?
So I live outside Philadelphia and our business is based here too. One of the reasons why we love Philly is because of its location, on the Eastern Corridor. Easy to get to DC, easy to get to New York, like when we did the Veg Fest in Baltimore. It really gave us access to a larger region than if we had established the business somewhere else. And so last night I was in Manhattan for dinner, actually. I was able to take the train in the afternoon, and we ate at Via Carota, if you're familiar, with a wonderful Italian restaurant in the West Village. And so my best bite was their cacio e pepe. So they have a very traditional cacio e pepe, and it
Pepper?
was so, so good. Probably not even saying it right, but the very standard Italian pasta dish.
Do you consider yourself vegetarian?
I don't know.
I was just wondering. Okay. If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
I think it would be to study a little harder. I was not the best student or the most focused child at the end of high school or during college. And I wish I had taken it a little bit more seriously and taken advantage of some of the classes that I had access to at University of Delaware than I ended up doing. So I'd say
Okay.
take yourself a little bit more seriously.
Okay. If you wake up tomorrow morning with a new talent, what would it be?
I wish I could sing. Very simply put. I mean, my kids seem to not mind it, although as they get older, they now realize how terrible of a voice I have, but I just think life seems so much more fun if you're singing about it and you can sing well, so that would be what I would wish for.
Okay, and I know cooking sort of wasn't your thing when you went into this business. Is there an epic culinary fail that you're willing to share with us?
Oh, what a great question. Well, this product that I've been trying to develop for 2 years is a fail upon a fail upon a fail, but we won't go into that in too much detail. I love cooking dishes out of the cookbook, the tahini table. And even when I do, there are times when if I'm not paying attention or doing it right, it just doesn't come out the way that it's supposed to. And it's a reminder every time to just take a second and read the whole recipe and get your bearings, before you start digging into creating a dish. But whether it's a fail in flavor, it's almost always a fail in look. I can never recreate the beautiful food styling and photography that we had for the cookbook. So I always laugh when I make a dish and it still tastes as good, but it doesn't look nearly as good as when we were able to make it for the cookbook.
Right. And my final question is, what didn't I ask you that I probably should have?
Oh, what a hard question. And I know you even prepared me with it, but I think that unless you're interested in more entrepreneurial or marketing and planning like you described, that I could talk about all day because the intricacies of strategy and trial and error as an entrepreneur is something that I could rant and ramble on all day, but we don't have to.
Okay. Well, it's been a pleasure reconnecting with you. I'm so excited to see how far you've come and how well you're able to express yourself. And I think that was part of your college education, wasn't it? Communication.
That's
Well,
right.
you do express yourself very well, and you don't and like I do all the time. I,
I've
you
had a
know,
lot of experience talking about Soom, and I'm also so passionate about it. I reflect often about how lucky I am to be selling tahini because I don't think, with the amount of sacrifice that it takes to be an entrepreneur, that I would do this for anything less than this product that is so delicious, nutritious, and versatile. So I can talk about tahini all day. I do
all
talk about tahini all day.
all day. Well, it's been a pleasure. I thank you. All the best to you and your sisters and your family. And thank you. Okay, there we go again. I all the best, continued success, and I look forward to see what's new on the horizon for Zoom. And everybody, that's zoomfoods.com, and information has floated up in the comments section. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. The Food Enthusiast is taking a break next week and returning Thursday, June 29th. My guest will be Suki Jameson, half of the duo that started Jameson Farms back in 1976 when raising sheep who were grass fed was something new and way before the time. And they have been supplying chefs like Eric Ripert, Anthony Bourdain. They're also authors of Coyotes in the Pasture and Wolves at the Door. They're semi-retired right now, but Suki has a great deal to share with us and great stories to tell. So please join us in 2 weeks, Thursday, June 29th. A reminder, monthly, J More Living is giving away $50 gift cards to some of your favorite local restaurants here in the Baltimore area. Just visit jmoreliving.com/contest to enter to win. If you need to reach me, you can always reach me at my email address, food@jmoreliving.com, or on Instagram at Dara Cooks. All shows are immediately archived in video form on J More Living's Facebook page and jmoreliving.com. Feel free to dig into our video archives and past shows. We truly appreciate it when you share our show with friends and family. Your plates always remain full. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.